on candid camera.
Well, awesome. I love it. So
right.
one of the things I want to make sure of, Steve, is that I think I have a bad habit of interrupting. That when I feel like I've got something to contribute, I tend to jump in, and I think I need to rein that in. So
Well, I do
help
that
me.
too. I noticed a lot that I'll try and fill in your words for you, and I do that with other people too. It's to a bad extent. I mean, it's like you're looking for the right word, and I'll throw it in there because I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But in some cases, I'm wrong. I mean, I'm totally wrong about what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but Steve, I feel like I do that to an excessive amount with you as well, because sometimes you struggle with those words as well, and you're trying to figure out the perfect. And I'll say something, and you'll either say, yeah, that's it, or you'll say, yeah, that, and it's actually this, and so you're being nice to me.
You do the same thing. Exactly
I do?
the same thing.
Well,
When I suggest something, you go, yeah, you do the same way. You kind of make it easy on me, but then you guide it where you really want it to go.
God. So please, help us out if we do that too much. It's just the way we are, and we're trying to help each other out of love.
But at the same time, I agree that I think both of us need to kind of give the other one a little more space to find the word that they're looking for, and if they're still struggling, then we help them.
Yeah.
And we could be off, but I'd say for the most part we're fairly well attuned to what the other one is thinking, and so we may have the word that's appropriate for what they're thinking closer to the forefront of our mind than they do, and so it's appropriate to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, if you didn't know, Steve and I are just like practically identical in our belief systems. We do have differences, but that's why it's easy for us to fill in words for each other, because we kind of know where each other is going, and for the most part are in agreement with the belief systems and truths that we both share.
Well, and I would want to add to that it's more than just an alignment of the belief system. It's actually a common energy that we share, and so we're on this I'm looking for a word here. It's this stream of energy that we're both tapped into. And so it's more than just having similar belief systems. There's a stream of energy that we're both tapped into in the conversation. Mm-hmm. So we know what the other person, because we're tapped into that same stream of energy.
Right. And you will see differences from time to time. You'll say, well, they're not that similar, but for the most part, I'd say 90%, 95%, we're grokking each other as we're going.
Yeah. The amount of times that we disagree clearly on something in the course of a year, I would say is real close to zero.
I'd disagree. I'd say it's more like none.
There you go. So there's a disagreement right there.
I know. I'm
That's
pointing that out.
typical of our disagreements.
There you go.
It's like we obviously still believe the same thing even though we're disagreeing.
Exactly. So, I think talking about the feminine energy that's rising right now is a big topic on a lot of people's minds, whether it's people that are involved in the shift, and we'll talk more about the shift a different time, but people who are kind of aware of what's going on, and we're seeing it in society a lot today. And even though people don't necessarily attribute it to the feminine energy rising, I think the way I look at it is that it's absolutely connected.
Yeah, and I think that people in what I would consider spiritual circles, people who spend a lot of time, that are very attuned to spirit subject matter and their own spirit connection with spirit, and their existence as a spirit inside a physical body, perceive what's happening in society today very much. All the challenges that you see with the Me Too issues and the women speaking up and taking a voice against abuse that they've faced in the past. I think people with a spiritual bent, as you might call it, that have, for which that's important to them. Mm-hmm. They typically see this as part of this rising of the feminine energy and stepping forth. So it's more than the women that are stepping forth are a symptom of this underlying feminine energy that is coming forth. And women are stepping up to it, and men are stepping back because they really need to.
Right.
They need to. It's something that's happening as an underpinning, an energetic underpinning to humanity. And it's being manifested in these things in society that we're all seeing now.
Yeah, I obviously agree. You probably hear that way too much in the future, but it's also a very difficult time, both for men and for women. And I feel that I don't struggle with it as much because I have a very strong feminine side, and so I embrace really what's going on as being necessary for the next step in our evolution, in the consciousness of humanity. But there are difficulties. It's not something that's very easy, and both for women and for men. There's sometimes that struggle in kind of tamping down or maybe potentially even washing away the masculine energy that has been dominant over the last number of centuries, and this rising of the feminine to I hope to be equal and balanced ultimately, but it may take some going to the extreme side in order to bounce back to the middle ground where there's the yin yang of the equal male and female energy.
Right, I agree. And I think that it's typical of advancements in humanity and the consciousness that there's struggle and there's pain and stress associated with doing that, because humans, as part of human nature, don't like change. And I'm certainly a case in point. It's painful for me to have to grow and expand and be someone different than I have been in the past and adhere to new rules because society is changing. And I think that's typical of humans in general, that's not a pleasant process. And so regardless of whether it's what we're facing now with femininity or other expansions and advancements in human consciousness, it's never a pretty picture, and it's never very pleasant, because you have to stretch in ways that you have to grow in ways that you haven't had to do in the past, and you're now playing by new rules that you didn't have to play by in the past, and that's difficult.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say that the general thought process would be that, or the general belief might be, that it's going to be harder for men in this process because the men have operated under the rule system for for so long, and for these changes where women are now to not going to take the aggression and the sexual aspects that men have always felt like, hey, this is the way it's always been, that it would be easier for women than for men. But I don't necessarily sense that's going to be the case, although you would think that as you're gifting more power to women, or women are taking more power, that it'd be easier for them, because it seems like humans love to have power, and that wouldn't be a bad thing, but it could be difficult.
Well, and also I think that it's a struggle for women because they're being asked to step up now. In the past, it was just accepted by both men and women that they take the back seat and they endure this abuse, and that's just kind of the way society has been, and we've all succumbed to that. We all acclimated to that. Right. But now women are being asked to take a new, more prominent, more aggressive, more in the front role, which means in some cases calling out men. Right. Which is not a pleasant thing to have to do. They didn't have to do that before because that wasn't part of the old rule set. Right. Now they're being asked to do that, and that's not pleasant to have to do that.
It's a change, and it's as you mentioned appropriately early on, change is not fun for a lot of people, and it's difficult. And so that I could easily imagine that women are going to find challenges in this new energy that they're rising to.
But I think by the same token, women are going to find a new surge of confidence that they didn't have in the past through this. So though it'll be challenging to them, they're going to find a new strength and a new power that they didn't have before. And men, I think, are going to be challenged in more serious ways, because they're going to have to step back and take a look at what in this new light would be considered abusive ways that they have had in the past, that they didn't see it as being abusive then. They saw it as just being the way it is, as women did too to some extent. And now men are going to have to re-examine the way they treat women and take a look at, well, was that really, a right way to do that, or was I being inappropriate? Was I being abusive to do that? And they've got to re-examine themselves, and in some cases chastise themselves for their previous behavior and change that behavior.
Interestingly, what is sort of being asked of men is to allow their feminine side to come out. That sort of not nurturing necessarily, but the connective side of themselves by becoming introspective and saying, hey, is this really appropriate or not, instead of just being that aggressive male and just doing because that's the way you've done it in the past. So that in itself, that introspection, I think could also be part of this femininity that comes out, because part of it's going to be the feminine side of men coming out. And I wonder sometimes, Steve, I wanted to ask you, it seems like we find more instances of men being attracted to men, men going through gender changes. Of course, we see it on both sides of things, men and women, but there seems to be more acceptance of men finding their love and comfort with other men, and it seems that maybe that's another sign of this feminine energy coming out. And I just wondered if you agreed with that, because even in television shows, movies, things that we're reading now, it's almost commonplace that you have two men who have a relationship with each other, and it's like no big deal anymore. Whereas 10 years ago, you rarely saw that. It was almost like a shock to see that.
And I think that producers would have felt that would have been a detriment to gaining an audience. It would have turned an audience away, whereas today it's acceptable to the fact that it actually attracts or opens them up to audiences. So it's obvious, a clear change. So I think it's all part of, it's related to this rising feminine, as you're saying. But it's humanity in general becoming more tolerant, more understanding, not so regimented and separated. It's all part of the same evolution.
Yeah, I think we both believe, as many of you do, that we're all one. And so, the fact that I think dropping judgment is one way of getting to the point where you recognize that everybody's the same energy, everybody's the same being on this planet, and there's no reason for negative energy from one person to another. And so, maybe
more tolerance and acceptance. And even if some other people are now embodying these alternate, what would have used to have been called alternate relationships and lifestyles, I forgot where I was going with that. So,
you know what, we're old and that happens, and so you know what, laugh at that, because
it's probably going to happen a lot.
Probably a lot more than we would want it to, but it's going to be. It's cool to embrace the human side of your existence here, and being older and forgetful is one of those. So
now I have to admit to this not just being an aspect of getting old for me. It's something I've done all my life. So anyway, there may be some of you out there that can relate to it, but in any case, it's something that we all have to deal with. Anyway, I wanted to mention to you all out there that we'd be interested in hearing your thoughts, your take on the subject that we're discussing here, because I'm sure that everyone, you'd have to be very isolated not to be feeling, if not actually hearing and seeing on the news and in the people around you, the manifestation of these changes and the challenges that it's causing, not only for society as a whole and the people that you see in the news, but perhaps for you individually as well. And we'd love to hear from you as to thoughts you have about it, experiences related to that, and add to the conversation. We would enjoy having that happen.
Absolutely. And if you have a question or an issue that you're trying to deal with in regard to this, we'd love to chat about it and maybe see if we could offer some assistance with that. It's not like Steve and I have all the answers, but I think the way that people should approach their issues in life is to seek solutions and seek advice, and if it resonates with you, keep moving forward with that. And if what we say ever doesn't resonate with you, hey, that's
Turn it
fine.
off. You got the power of the button there.
No, don't turn us off. Yeah, turn us off. That's
If
the way to go.
if you feel so inclined, we would encourage you to do that. If you care
Absolutely.
to continue to listen, even though you don't agree with us, that's great
Yeah.
too. We encourage conversation, and
do.
we also encourage opposing viewpoints, different viewpoints.
And there are different paths to get to the top of the mountain, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we honor all those paths, basically. And
We do, right.
yeah.
And
So
and,
our path is going to be different than other people's paths, but if our paths are similar to yours, hey, we'd love to have you tag along.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, I'd like to say that I hope you all have found this entertaining, if nothing else, but also perhaps it has inspired some thinking, some new perspectives on your part, or inspired you to respond to us in a way that you indicate is, well, there's a different perspective than what we've expressed. And so anyway, in whatever way, it'd be great if this is of value to you. And I don't know, you have anything to add to that, Kevin?
I just want to say I love you, and I love you, Steve. I love this interaction, and this is great. So I love you.
Likewise. We love you, and we hope that that you can feel that.
Yeah.
That would be our highest achievement in creating these interactions is to express our love and for you to feel that.
Yeah.
And if you have similar feelings, to for us all to feel that. And Kevin and I, for a long time now, have seen the expansion, expression, and understanding and feeling of love as being just a very important thing in our lives, and something that we would like to engender more of in humanity in general, if that's possible. So any contribution that you have along those lines is more than welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So it was nice spending time with you guys, and you, Kevin.
Yeah, same with me.
You guys take care, and until next time, enjoy yourselves. Have a great life.
Ciao.